Okay, we're going to go through the instructions of how to turn a tarp into a quick shelter or a tent. The things that you need to do to be able to do this are some lightweight rope, a tarp. This one's a 12 by 16. You'll need a minimum of 6 stakes. You can use more if you've got them. And then 2 poles. These poles are 5-foot poles, and what we've done with these poles is if you look at the end of the pole, you can see that we've put a construction screw into the end of the pole with some left. This is a good little tip. You'll notice that we put some duct tape on the end of the pole. What that does is it protects your tarp so that when you tighten it down, it doesn't put a hole through the tarp. That's a really good tip. The other thing you can do is you can actually shave the corners off with a pocket knife if you want to do that before you put the duct tape on. Now, to get ready, the first thing you need to do is to cut and prepare your rope. You can cut them as you go, but you'll notice that this end is frayed. The best thing that you can do is actually to take a lighter and to burn that end down to make it so it doesn't continue to fray. When you're doing this, it's probably a good idea to wear gloves, especially if you're having any of the youth do it. Have them wear their gloves when they're burning this, otherwise they're guaranteed to get burnt. Okay, the first thing to do is set out your tarp. Just lay it out flat. You'll notice that the tarp is typically longer on one end than the other. For this particular setup, we want to start up on the wide side. So come to the wide side and find in the middle, you're going to find the middle grommet. So find right in the middle, pull that side up, stick it in the hole, and then hold at this point. At this point, it's really good to get some help from somebody. So if you can have somebody come and hold this stake, then you can get the rope and start working with the rope. So we'll get one side done in first. All right, the first thing to do is to connect your rope to the stake. So go through the hole and down, because you want the hole to go around both the screw and through the tarp so that you've got both of them. And at this point, we want to tie a taut line hitch. So to tie a taut line hitch, what you do is take it over, under twice, back over the other line, down, and back through the rope. That creates a taut line. The beauty of a taut line is it can be adjustable up and down the string. So we'll do that. Then have your helper hold the stake and bring the rope down to where you're going to put in your first stake. Okay, now we're going to repeat the same process on the other side. One thing we noticed on this tarp that it doesn't actually have a mid-center, but that's okay. It just means that one side of your tent is going to be a little bit longer than the other, but it's not the end of the world. Okay, so I do that on this side, bring it down again. And again, if you've got multiple people to help, it's nice to have somebody to hold that side, but if it tips over, it doesn't even really matter at that point. So get in, put your stake in, and tie that taut line hitch again. So again, it's one, 2, over and through. And then you got that taut line hitch. Okay. And now what I can do, let's pull this up, tighten that line, and hold the tent up. Okay, the next step is we need to put the 4 stakes in on the corners. Okay, at this point, what you've got is a stake, the rope, and if you've got 2 people holding up the poles on the end, you've got a nice straight line with the tent. At this point, the next step is to pull the edges of the tarp out and put the stakes in. Okay, with your person holding up the stake vertically from the ground, pull this until it's tight and put your stake in to hold the bottom of the tarp in. And do this on all 4 corners. Now with all the 4 stakes in, the next step is just to tighten up the lines until it stays tight across the base. You can tighten this, but really it's just a matter of sliding up the ropes until it's tight. And There you go. All right, there you go. Don't worry if one side's a little bit longer than the other. It just depends on where your tarp goes and where it falls. All right, one of the things you can do with your buckets is take your buckets and put them inside the tent and slide them up against the tent, because it keeps the edge of that tent up, especially if you're gonna put your heads on that side of the tent. So that is the setup for shelter number 1. Okay, so this is a second shelter you can set up with the same poles, the same tarp, the same rope, and the same stakes. What we're gonna do this side is you're gonna divide the long side of the tarp into 3 parts. So I counted it, it's about grommet number 5. So I put the stake here, let's roll it, here, and I put the other one in about 5, but we'll just do one first so we can do one at a time. Same process on the top, through the grommet, around the thing, taut line hitch. Okay, and then the other stake goes next to it. So 2 on the front. Okay, once you have both of the stakes and your ropes in on that side, now it's time to move to the opposite corners and start putting in the stakes in the corners. Start with the opposite corners and stake down the corners first. All right, with the back corners done, now we can move to the front and bring the front corners down and put the front corners in to hold the front end. You'll notice that it's not square. It's actually kind of protected. Okay, with this configuration, it actually works better if you're in a really windy situation. What you do is you put the long side down against the wind, as the wind will blow up and it won't grab the front of your tarp and take it away. The buckets, by putting buckets in the back, you can lift that back edge up to create more room or headspace in the back. So that's setup number 2.